If this video is anything, it's a reminder that even the best among us will eventually be destroyed. How's that for a bleak opening? You feeling thoroughly disillusioned yet? I joke, of course, but seriously, we are all dust in the wind. I'll stop. Look, anytime someone seems unbeatable, seems like the greatest ever in fighting, we should really stop and pause with the no known weaknesses rhetoric, because today's video is proof that so many times the best champions this sport has ever had at the peak of their powers don't just get beat with a narrow decision, don't just get caught with a flash KO at the start or in a fight where they were easily winning, they get utterly and thoroughly destroyed over the course of a fight, leaving no doubt about a fluke finish or a bad night. I'm Tommy from MMA On Point, and these are 10 times GOAT champs got dominated. Number 10, conquering the Conqueror. While this win was pretty emphatic, I'm placing it lower because while Alexander Volkanovski was the featherweight GOAT coming into that fight with Ilia Topuria, there was definitely trouble elsewhere that I think played a factor. And I don't just mean not beating Islam Makhachev for the lightweight title, although that is part of it. So Volk wins his third fight against Max Holloway and pretty much seals his GOAT status before moving up to take on Islam in that pound-for-pound top spot super fight. And he arguably wins, but doesn't get the nod from the judges.
Volk won that fight. We were convinced. Were we too biased? We might have been biased.
Then he heads back to 145 and finishes off a super tough challenger in Yair Rodriguez, one of his most impressive wins in my opinion.
What a tremendous performance by Volkanovski. He looked vintage tonight.
And this is where the trouble starts. When Islam's opponent for his next defense, Charlie O, dropped out a few weeks out from the event, fans were jacked.
I'm jacked to the tits!
You feel it?
No. That Volk decided to step in and get that rematch.
I am that guy that will do anytime, anywhere, any weight, whatever it is.
But Makhachev would KO Volk in the first round, and afterwards Alex would reveal that he wasn't in the best place.
I never thought I'd struggle with it, but I mean, like, for some reason, when I wasn't fighting or in camp, I just do my head in, you know what I mean? I needed a fight, and then this opportunity come up, and I had to, I had to do it.
Volkanovski's fight with Topuria would take place just 4 months after that brutal head kick KO loss. And while the bout was somewhat competitive, it felt like Ilia was inevitably going to land those shots that he would in the second round to absolutely decimate Alex and end his all-time great reign. Number 9, Joanna Violenced. 5 defenses into Joanna Jędrzejczyk's reign at strawweight, and the comparisons to other women's all-time greats like Ronda Rousey and Chris Cyborg were being made. Not only was Joanna clearly the greatest strawweight of all time, she was one of the greatest women's fighters, period. Meanwhile, Rose Namajunas gave no indication that she would be the one to dethrone Joanna unbeatable. After losing the tough finale for the inaugural strap, Namajunas rebuilt her momentum in a 3-fight run that set her up for a title eliminator that she would lose to Karolina Kowalkiewicz. She got her shot off a win over Michelle Waterson, who'd only beat Angela Magana and PVZ in the UFC. So Rose getting a chance at the title felt like, well, we need somebody for Joanna to fight next, so you're up, kid. Good luck.
Joanna by murder. She's a beast. I don't see anybody in that division taking that title away from her, man.
The champ was a massive favorite going in, of course, but holy shit, Namajunas just looked flawless out there and got one of the most shocking KO finishes in WMMA history, beating up Joanna so badly she tapped to strikes.
Unbelievable! Rose! There is a new strawweight queen!
An all-time stunner. If there was any doubt, though, about the legitimacy of the performance, Rose followed up in the rematch by winning 4 of 5 and completely shattering the notion. Whose legacy is greater? You could probably debate at this point, although I still think it's Joanna. That said, Rose showed that she was the better fighter between the two of them when they got locked in the cage. Number 8, Ice to see you again. For so many fans of the UFC who started watching when the tough boom happened, they hadn't even heard of Rampage Jackson, who had been fighting in Japan until 2007. So imagine their shock and surprise to learn that he'd already beaten the mythical Iceman Chuck Liddell, and not that long before their second encounter for UFC light heavyweight gold, just 3 years previous in Pride. A beating so bad, John Hackelman was forced to throw in the towel. But a lot had happened in the life of Chuck Liddell in those 3 years, winning 7 fights in a row, earning light heavyweight UFC gold, defending it 4 times, avenging his loss to Randy Couture twice, and beating up Tito Ortiz for a second time. For a lot of fans, especially because Frank Shamrock had been erased from history, Chuck Liddell was clearly the greatest light heavyweight ever at that point. Who else could it be? And okay, so this Rampage guy beat him in Japan, big deal, different rules, there's a ring, Liddell was probably jet lagged or something. And since then Chuck has beat everybody. As someone who was deeply embedded in casual MMA culture during that period, I can promise you that so many fans had this mentality going into that Rampage fight. But the ghosts of the Iceman's past were very real and came back to haunt him in the rematch. Rampage looked faster and in total control for the entirety of this brief fight that would end with an emphatic KO finish that sealed the deal and ended the Liddell era at 205 as brutally and dominantly as was possible, and he made it look easy.
I just knew I was going to beat him. It was not one doubt in my mind. I just knew I was going to beat him.
Number 7, Cardio Catastrophe. I still contend that a healthy prime Cain Velasquez probably wins against every heavyweight ever. Now, whether that's true is debatable, of course, but it illustrates a conclusion I came to by watching this guy when he was at his best and clearly the greatest heavyweight the UFC had ever seen. But for that flash KO loss to JDS, Cain was domination personified. He KO'd Nogueira, KO'd Lesnar, KO'd Bigfoot twice, and absolutely decimated Dos Santos in the 2 rematches they had for gold, beatings we'd never seen at heavyweight before then or since. And that was the framework Velasquez had laid down going into that fight with Fabricio Verdum. A bout that was hyped up on Tough Latin America, but ultimately delayed when Cain injured his knee and needed surgery. In the interim, Verdum won interim gold against Mark Hunt. An impressive victory, no doubt, but even with the layoff from the injury, we'd never seen Cain struggle. It just didn't even feel like a possibility outside of getting caught with something. But of course, the bout infamously took place in Mexico City, with Cain gassing hard as the fight went on, to the point of being totally compromised.
Big deep breaths from Cain Velasquez. Wobbled and exhausted at the end of that round.
Both fighters had their chance to acclimate to the thin air in MC prior to the fight, and Verdum did it properly. Cain did not. As a result, Fabricio would put heavy pressure on Velasquez that forced him to panic and end up getting choked halfway through the 3rd round. Exhausted and no longer champion, Cain vowed to make things right in the rematch, but unfortunately for him, it would never come due to a whole host of issues. Number 6, Habib 2.0. The absolutely stupid run that Charles Oliveira was on starting in 2018 through to 2022 really had people wondering if he was going to be taking the crown as the greatest lightweight of all time. 8 wins straight would lead up to his vacant title bout with Mikey Chandler, a wild affair that saw Chuck win gold in dramatic fashion. He followed that up with victories over Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje. Now, that last one would see the champ stripped beforehand for missing weight, but the whole scale situation was weird that day, and so most felt like going into that bout with Islam Makhachev that even though it was for vacant gold, Charlie was the champ in all but name. For Islam, the fight would be the culmination of a dominant 6-year unbeaten run, but given how great Oliveira's performances had been, it really did feel like this would be the truest test of whether or not Islam could live up to the legacy of Habib, and the test was passed easily. Oliveira spent most of the fight on his back, had nothing for Islam, and would get dropped and choked in the 2nd round. It was not even really a competition. If there were questions about whether Makhachev was going to have a Habib-like run, they couldn't have been answered any more emphatically on that night, and Charlie's tentative GOAT status was quickly revoked. Number 5, Country Boy Beatdown. I don't think we could conceive of a more dominant force than Matt Hughes at welterweight back in 2004. 5 defenses into his first run with the gold at 35-3 with no losses in 3 years. There was no other way to look at this guy but as the GOAT. Well, enter BJ Penn.
I love this game, and I believe I'm the kind of fighter that can take anyone out at any second.
As a UFC fan, you'd seen a frustrating run for Penn at 155. He entered the division like a bat out of hell, but then lost a 5-rounder to Jens Pulver for gold. Then in the final of the lightweight tournament that next year for the vacant title, he'd go to a draw and come up short again. So a talented guy clearly, but up 15 pounds against Matt Brick Shithouse with a Minecraft head on top of it and a neck wider than a tractor trailer Hughes? Yeah, fucking right. With as much faith as anybody could have had in Penn at that point, Hughes looked like an all-time great. We just didn't realize BJ was too at that point. The fight is quick and bad for Matt. Like he looked like he didn't even belong. After struggling on the feet, he panics and shoots but ends up on his back.
This is a bad spot for Matt Hughes.
Where he gets dominated until he gets choked.
It's over! It's over! We have a new welterweight champion!
There was not a single positive moment for the champ, really. He just got beat by a lightweight who couldn't win gold in his own division, but could end the reign of the greatest welterweight ever. An insane moment that was only made crazier when Penn immediately left the UFC afterwards. Haha, see ya, suckers! Nah, I'll be back pretty quick. Number 4, One Perfect Night. One day, Cody Garbrandt's gonna be sitting there with his grandchildren, and they're gonna ask him, well, they're gonna wanna know about the face tattoos, but after that, they're gonna say, Pop Cody, that's what they call him, were you a good fighter? And he's gonna look longingly into the distance, and his eyes are gonna get a little glassy, and he's gonna say, grandkids, for one perfect night, I was the best in the entire world, and god damn it, he was. Dominic Cruz had conquered everything that could be conquered at bantamweight. By the time of this showdown with Cody, his rivalry with Team Alpha Male was done, and Cruz was the clear victor. 2 wins over Faber, Joe B, and a victory over TJ Dillashaw. The rivalry was dead, and with 5 title defenses and no losses since 2007, there were 0 questions about who was the greatest 135er ever. Garbrandt was to be TAM's Cruz killer though, the gym's last chance, and he would get his chance in one insane year where he would go from unranked to a title challenger in just 3 fights, all first-round KOs.
Cody Garbrandt, nothing short of spectacular.
What's up, Dominic Cruz? Where you at? I'm gonna break your jaw.
Even with the momentum, it was hard to imagine anybody beating Cruz. Maybe Cody would catch him with a big shot, but that was really it. That was the sentiment that a lot of fans had. Instead, Garbrandt would put on one of the most thorough displays of dominance in a decision win we've ever seen in a title fight. He looked miles ahead of Cruz that night, like Dominic couldn't even touch the dude.
And he is talking trash to Dominic and laughing at him.
It's the only fight in this video that doesn't even have a finish because it didn't need one. Cruz was outclassed in every possible way. It was a perfect fight on the perfect night for Cody Garbrandt, and no loss ever quite hit as hard as that one in Cruz's entire career. Number 3, Habi learned to putt. When you look at the first fight between Francis Ngannou and Stipe Miocic, it felt like an expose. It was like, oh, so maybe this Ngannou guy isn't champion caliber. He's got freaky KOs, but maybe he can't handle high-level fights. Miocic wore the Predator down with grappling he seemed entirely unequipped to handle, and took every round 50-44s across the board. Could not have been more thorough.
You know, everyone said he was like unbeatable. Well, I beat him. I beat the brakes off him.
From there, Miocic would go on to, of course, lose to DC in his next fight very soundly, almost enough to make it an entry, but come back incredibly in their second encounter and entirely dominate their third, really cementing his GOAT status at heavyweight. And it was then that Ngannou returned. But what did he really learn in that time? That was the question. He'd KO'd Curtis Blades and Cain Velasquez in less than a minute each. JDS and Rosenstruik weren't going to test his grappling, and didn't get the chance to anyway, both put down at the start of their fight as well. So it was like, okay, well, has he learned any new tricks, or is he going to go in there and either get a KO in the first 10 seconds or get 50-44'd again? Well, to the shock of everybody, patient Ngannou was born that night, and while Miocic would only try a single takedown, it was pretty clear that things had changed.
Wow, big improvement.
With Francis getting one of his own and methodically picking apart the champion before brutally KOing him early in the second.
Francis Ngannou can finally call himself the greatest heavyweight in the world!
4 years later, Stipe would fight John Jones for the title for some reason.
Still not over, right?
Number 2, Octagon Games.
It's the UFC! All-weight champion! My goodness!
Anderson Silva getting knocked out by Chris Weidman will forever be the most shocking moment I've ever witnessed in this sport. It's one of the most shocking things I've ever seen, period. I wish I could have recorded my reaction that night, the frantic calls I was making at like midnight to anybody that would pick up their phone on my contact list, just so I could talk to someone about what had just happened. I watched the fights alone. It's okay, I didn't want anybody to come over anyway. But I start this entry with this personal anecdote because I want you to understand just how insanely dominant Anderson Silva was and how he was perceived by we the fans at the time. But what about the Chael fight? It was exactly the Chael fight that made it seem like this guy was invincible. He gets his ass beat for nearly 5 full rounds with busted ribs and still wins? Nothing could ever beat this man. He would always find a way. Anderson's status as GOAT by the time of the Chris Weidman fight can't be understated. He was a full-on living legend at that point. And truly, who was Chris? The guy had 9 pro fights total. Yeah, he brutally beat Mark Munoz and got a win over Damian Maia, but not a damn soul thought he was anything but another name to add to Anderson's list of successful defenses. Obviously, the KO moment is what we all remember and has been shown 9 million times everywhere, but people forget that Silva was losing that fight before that. This wasn't a flash KO, and damn, Anderson got caught playing games in the octagon. He was getting beat, and he was getting beat in the second fight before the break. I think Chris would have won both fights if they went 25, but it doesn't make his wins any less dominant that they didn't. Number 1, Purple Pillow Blues.
How you feel, Ronda? How do you feel, Ronda? Can you guys?
I think great sports stories are always great, no matter how many times you've heard them or seen them. And watching back all these fights for this video, there was just one, Holly Holm versus Ronda Rousey, that still gives me goosebumps, no matter how many times I see it.
Holly looking to finish! Holly Holm!
For so many, Ronda Rousey was WMMA. She was their introduction to it. She was clearly the greatest at it. And what was fascinating about this era is that from top to bottom, from the most casual to the hardcore fans, the acceptance that Ronda Rousey was seemingly unbeatable was near universal.
She's not a once in a lifetime. She's once ever.
There's never been a woman like her.
6 defenses into her UFC run, where nobody but Miocic Tate had made it out of the opening exchange, painted a pretty clear picture of a dominance that was unmatched in most all sports, and one that had no indication of stopping, at least in the fervor of the moment. In hindsight, there were signs, but not going into Holly's challenge. Like Taz would say, Holm was just another victim. And God, the scope of this moment is truly wild to look back on. 56,000 fucking people in attendance, a 1.1 million buy rate for Rousey as the headliner. It was Ronda's peak of cultural relevance. But when the cage door closed, oh my God, Holly Holm owned Rousey in every aspect of that fight. Grappling, striking, it didn't matter. Panic set in fast.
She is showing a lot of holes in her stand-up game.
And by the start of round 2, when the head kick came, the outcome had gone from impossible 6 minutes earlier to inevitable. No champion has ever seemed more dominant and been more thoroughly dominated. It had to be number 1. Like my number 1 guy, Max Randall. He edited this video and he's amazing. Please follow him on his socials and go check out his awesome YouTube channel. Thank you to all our channel members. I cannot express how much it helps having you guys around. Fight fans, if you love what we do, hit the join button and become a member too. Or at the very least, like and subscribe, because I got a million more of these in me. Leave a comment about which dominant champ getting dominated shocked you the most. And thank you so much for watching. Be safe out there, guys.